This podcast is independent from my studies at Texas A&M's College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. This is intended to share knowledge and experiences in the field of veterinary medicine and to share the importance of medicine for the pursuit of science and its positive effects on the general public. What got you into teaching?
Well, that's a great question. And I wish I had a really great answer like I love teaching and always wanted to do it. But the truth is, a little sadder than that. It's just a job requirement. And I didn't know I was going to love it. It turns out I love it. And so that's great. But it was all that was always actually the part that made me the most nervous. I knew I wanted to do research. I knew I wanted to do clinical veterinary microbiology. And I really in a lot of places, you do that at a college of veterinary medicine, and so that also carries with it a teaching responsibility, and it was a bit daunting to me to think about teaching, and so I was really fortunate to have fantastic teaching mentors, at the college that worked with me all the way through and to be able to dip my toes in a little bit at a time with a few lectures before becoming a course coordinator, and so I actually had I actually had the better part of 10 years doing some lectures and helping with labs and doing clinical teaching in the clinical microbiology lab, which was similar to what I did in my residency, before taking on the responsibility of building agents of disease into and then becoming course coordinator for the fall semester.
So you were involved with the course that you teach now before, I guess, was our semester, my class's semester, your first time teaching it? I can't remember.
No, actually the first graduating class that I taught was the class of 2021.
Okay.
And so back in 2018 is when I got my start. But Agents of Disease is a two-semester course covering microbiology and parasitology and virology, as you know. And three of us developed it: Dr. Roger Smith and Dr. Jeffrey Musser and I, and we built it from prior courses, and then we were fortunate enough to have parasitologists come on board to because none of us were parasitologists. And so the first year I was only the course coordinator for the second semester. Dr. Smith, right before he retired, took on the first semester because we were at a transition stage with a still teaching the old curriculum to the class that started before, and then teaching the new curriculum. And so Dr. Musser didn't help us teach the way he normally would have in the spring semester. So Dr. Smith took care of the course coordination for the first semester and mentored me a lot, and then I got to jump into the deep end in the fall semester with the second half. And then Dr. Musser, I think, retired right before y'all.
Mhm.
So it was probably my first year of being course coordinator for both semesters. And I don't think it's our long-term plan for me to be the course coordinator for both semesters. It's just that I was the person that had the most familiarity with the course, and
Mhm.
I actually love it. So it's fine with me.
Is it a lot?
It's a lot. It is a lot. It's, each year it gets easier and better as you learn more and get more comfortable with diseases that maybe my background is as a, bacteriologist more so than a virologist, or, in fact, I'm not a virologist. Um, so getting comfortable with the virology content and feeling able to really answer questions was, important to me. Dr. Musser had done a lot of that for many years, and so I felt like I really had to get up to speed. But so far so good. Everyone continues to pass their exam in 3rd year and go on and do well and pass NAVALY with a really good pass rate. So we don't seem to have made too many big mistakes. I'm sure there's always things that we can improve and make better.
Yeah, I think especially this summer, I've been looking back at my AOD notes and pharmacology notes and just like, what did we talk about again? What am I forgetting? And I'm like, oh yeah, a lot of things because there's a lot of
There's a
different
lot.
components to every disease and all the agents, and it's not just one, like, each agent, it's not just one thing. There's multiple different like subtypes, and uh I definitely, while taking AOD, was like, I know I'm not going to remember most of this stuff. I'm just going to have it here and try and make it through. Um, and I'm so glad that we have parasitologists because I don't want to do that. I am not a worm guy. And I have friends the same way. Like, it's just really difficult.
Yeah.
Um, but what got you into bacterial? What is it? Bacteriology?
Bacteriology, yeah. Actually, it was my undergraduate microbiology class. So I'm a Texas A&M graduate and both
Whoop.
undergrad and vet school. Yes, I'm pretty happy about it too. Um, And so, as a biomedical science undergraduate major, we had to take a required biomedical microbiology, and it was also veterinary microbiology in our junior year. And so, I took that with Dr. Cahey, and he was colorful and entertaining. He made everything fun, and we had a great laboratory with it. And so, we did a lot of um, testing of unknown bacteria. So he'd give you a bacteria and a case history, and of course he knew what the bacteria was, and your job was to figure out what you had, whether it was gram positive or gram negative, and then do all the biochemical testing. And I really loved it. It's the mystery of what do I have, what is it, and does it fit with the disease? And so it really reinforced the lecture material as well. But it was really lab. I really enjoyed working in the lab, and so I realized pretty quickly that, oh, if I had known this when I started, I would have been a microbiology major. But I'm just glad I found it when I did. And so I took my elective credits, the remaining elective credits, because by the time you're a junior, you're almost done, um, in microbiology and aquatic microbiology. And sure enough, yep, that's really what I wanted to do. And so that became a focus for me.
So why vet school after that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I also knew I really wanted to do medicine and veterinary medicine in particular. As a high school student, we had a really cool program at my high school where we got to rotate through different areas of the human hospital, and I had been working at a veterinary hospital from the moment they would let me come in the door and work, and discovered pretty quickly that humans are interesting, but they're not as interesting to me as dogs and cats
Hmm.
and exotic species. I think the variation that we have in veterinary medicine is really interesting. And bacteria are interesting in and of themselves, but they're particularly interesting in the context of causing disease and then the ability to cure disease or prevent disease. That's probably the part that excites me the most.
Yeah, out of all the agents, like what separates the bacteria from not like definitionally wise, but like
Sure.
to you, like what sparked your interest the most about it?
Yeah, I think it's because there are these unicellular things that can survive without us for the most part. Obviously, not entirely. Viruses have to have us, have to have a host cell to replicate in. Bacteria can live on their own, and yet they've evolved into these niches where they either symbiotically live with humans and animals in our gastrointestinal tract and on our skin, or sometimes when things go awry, become pathogens and take over and cause disease. And just that whole unicellular lifestyle and ability to grow them on a plate and figure out what they are and what they do. Probably the detective part of figuring out who they are and what they do is the part that excites me the most. I know you could do that with viruses too, and virulogists would be like, "Well, but viruses are so much cooler." That's okay. We all have to have our favorites.
Hmm. But now teaching, what's
Mhm.
kind of your mindset about that? What do you like about it, and what's your like philosophy?
Yeah, my mindset about it is really I'm just there to help someone find what they need to be the best veterinarian they can be. I'm lucky to be able to primarily teach veterinary students, and so thinking back to where I was as a veterinary student in the first year and the second year, and where were my struggles? Are there ways that I can help people overcome those struggles with maybe less effort so they can focus their time on other things? That's part of my goal. My philosophy is that as a teacher, I have a responsibility to every student's future patients, that they are, when they walk out of my class, at least prepared with baseline and hopefully with an understanding of what they know and what they don't know, because we don't teach everything that's out there, and new pathogens evolve and arise over time, and old pathogens and parasites come back, as we've seen. You and I talked a little bit about New World screwworm,
Hmm.
and it's back, for us. I mean, it never really went away, it just went away for us. And so thinking about that obligation to your future patients, as an extension, what do you need to know? How do I help you prepare as a student, for those challenges? And also letting students know that it's okay to not know, that there's always a way to find out. What's not okay is to not go and try to find out, right? Um, so I think that's probably the crux of it. How can I make it easier?
The sheer volume of information that is kind of required by a class called Agents of Disease. You could have made like you could have split it up into 4 or 5 different classes and do
Yeah.
bacteria, viruses, and like the fungus and all of these different things in different classes, but putting it all together, how do you determine what to focus on, what routes you want to go down, what routes you're like, okay, this isn't as important. Like,
Yeah.
what do you?
We spent about 4 or 5 years talking about that because there was a lot of concern that we would cut out too many things, that there were some foundational things that most of us had been trained in early on in our own careers, and if we took them out, was that doing a disservice to future students and to future patients? So we spent a lot of time, and part of the process for us was, querying a lot of veterinarians in, specialty practice and in diagnostic medicine and primary care practice, of what are the things you do every day and what pieces of knowledge do you need, and having them prioritize lists. So we went through textbooks and diagnostic lab, catalogs of tests to say what pathogens are we testing for in Texas, especially in Texas, because we have a responsibility to the people of Texas, right? Um, what pathogens and parasites are we looking at testing for? What do people see? What do our clinicians, here within in the college, think are important? How would they prioritize? So we asked probably 60 or 70 veterinarians within our realm to prioritize lists. And then we went from those prioritized lists and said, how do these tie together, fit together? Um, is there anything missing? There were a few things missing because there are some things that we don't see every day in practice, but we all still need to know about, including things like New World screwworm, um, tularemia, and plague. Those are not common in Texas, but certainly every veterinarian in Texas needs to know about them. And then creating a structure for the class, and we talked a lot about what should the structure be. The way we were all trained was by specialists working in their field, and so as a microbiologist, the way that I approach a bacteria from a culture is, I have this organism on a plate. Is it gram positive or gram negative? What's its shape? And is it a cocci? Is it a rod? And how does it fit? And then what are the biochemical tests that I would use to identify it? And that's how I think about bacteria. But as a veterinarian, I have a dog with upper respiratory disease. What are the most common pathogens that are causes of upper respiratory disease? What needs to be on my differential list if as I'm dealing with this patient with a cough or with pneumonia? And so how to marry those 2 things together, and where to spend your time. And since our students are veterinary students, and very few of my former students are likely to become, microbiologists, it seems pretty clear that we need to take the veterinarian perspective into account while not doing disservice to the microbiology or the microbiologist or the virology or the mycology, because we also talk about fungi, or the parasites. I'll have to give the parasites some credit there. So how do we do that? And so that's why we structured our course the way we did, with the first part of the first semester being an overview of these are what these things are and how they work, and then the rest of the course being a systems approach by host species, of these are the things you would expect to see in these hosts. And these are the way that respiratory disease in dogs is similar to respiratory disease in cats and cows and horses, and the ways that they're really different.
I think you are in the running for some of the longest slides, and
Yes.
there's a lot of information in those
Sad but
slides too.
true. Yeah.
What's the most fun part about it?
Yeah, not the slides. Um, yes, I keep trying to come up with a way to make the slides more succinct, and I think the only way for me to make the slides more succinct is to create a notes package for you or to require a textbook. And there's not just one textbook out there that's really great for our class, and so it becomes a bit challenging. Um, and really I should just take the time and write the book, but that's a lot of time and
For you to write the book? And
to write a notes
oh,
package
okay.
for our class or a book that would work for our class. Um, and there's other people that have written really great microbiology books, but maybe don't have the parasitology or some piece. Our course is really kind of unusual in that. Uh, it is what it is, I guess. So probably the thing that is the most fun is truly working with students and answering questions and trying to help people come to an understanding of something. And truly the happiest moment is when you see somebody that's been struggling and they finally have the aha moment and it all makes sense. And sometimes that doesn't come till fourth year. When we do some of the antibiotic discussions with our pharmacologist, Dr. Fate, sometimes folks are really, you know, challenged by that because the doing antimicrobial therapy, it's one of the most important parts probably of my clinical job, but it is one of the most challenging to understand because you're bringing together information about the bacteria, information about the drug, how the drug works in the patient, how the bacteria are going to respond to the drug, and then there's some other factors that come into play as well. And so it's really a complicated decision when you're choosing antibiotics to treat patients, but it never looks like it, right? When we go to the doctor and they prescribe antibiotics for us, it's like they just magically knew what they were supposed to give us. And sometimes they do, but most of the time it's based on a pretty lengthy thought process. And so building the foundation for that takes some time, and sometimes it takes until fourth year until folks have the aha moment. So I get some of the payoff when students that I saw in their first or second year get to fourth year, and then it's like, oh, now I get it. Now it makes sense. I understand what you and Dr. Fate were talking about, um, on the one hand, you might say, "Well, why don't you just leave it till 4th year?" Because you actually need the foundation in 1st and 2nd year to help you with 3rd year and then the culmination of it in 4th year. So probably my favorite is the aha moment.
Do you work or do you teach fourth year students?
I do. In fact, I'm on clinics right now, and so, what that involves in addition to doing the clinical job, being in the clinical microbiology lab, reading cultures and, answering questions about cases, is that I spend about 5 hours a week, 10 hours total over the rotation, interacting with, senior veterinary students who are on the rotation. They have a couple of cases. They're naturally occurring case histories uh, and we do the whole Socratic method of, okay, what are your differentials? What diagnostic tests do you want to do? What antimicrobial therapy, if any, would you initiate before you have a culture result back? And they tell me that, and then I say, okay, in this patient, this is actually what we grew, and here's your susceptibility report. Now, how would you change what you did empirically, now that you know a little bit more about this particular patient? And so we do that kind of role play so that when you're on medicine and you see a case just like that, because these are pretty common case histories, you're a little bit more prepared. And then they can always throw you a curveball and it be something more resistant than what you've seen before. And so we try to build a foundation where it's okay then to come and talk to the microbiology lab about what should we do in this situation? Do you think this is a real pathogen? Those kinds of conversations.
Do you the concept of antibiotic resistant bacteria
Mhm.
has always been kind of preached since I've been even in high school. Um, like, and it might be just because I'm still kind of like a kid. I'm not a child, but I I I have people in the hospital, like managers and my bosses, and they're like, no, you're to us, you are still a kid, and I'm like, no, that's fair, it's fair. I haven't
Anybody
even
under 40
graduated.
is, still a kid to me, so
um, do you see that in real time? The growing numbers of bacterial samples that are submitted to you that are just even more and more resistant to what we have?
Fortunately, not every day, but yes, I have seen the acquisition of resistance occurring in populations of bacteria over time, and probably my best example would be methicillin-resistant staph suit intermediates from dogs. I started as a faculty member in 2008, and at that time, when we'd isolate a methicillin-resistant staph, they were usually still susceptible to clindamycin, chloramphenicol, fluoroquinolones, and a few other drugs. And so, particularly for chloramphenicol, um, when I would talk to colleagues at other schools and say, "Yeah, ours are still usually susceptible," they say, depending on where they were in the country, some would say, "Oh, no, we haven't seen a chloramphenicol susceptible one in a long time." And over the course of about 2 or 3 years, I started to see that happen. That as we would have these methicillin-resistant staffs that were resistant to most things besides chloramphenicol, people would have to pick the chloramphenicol, and then over time, we would stop seeing chloramphenicol susceptible isolates. So I've seen it in real time, and I've seen the emergence of carbapenem-resistant Enterobacterialis in our patient population, and,
That one, it seemed like when we went over that in class, it really scared you.
yeah, oh, yeah, it's a scary one because it turns out it's very easy to get E. coli, to have E. coli transmission, so it's a perfect One Health topic, right? E. coli can pretty easily be transmitted from animal to animal, animal to human, or human to animal, and carbapenem-resistant Enterobacterialis, um is just it's not great. It's, we've had they've emerged in my lifetime, we never used to see them in this country in humans, and then we started seeing them, emerge, and, now we're seeing them in veterinary patients. Our veterinary isolates are still sometimes susceptible to other drugs, and that's a good thing, but I don't know how long that will last.
Hmm.
There aren't great choices for treatment for humans that get infected with those, and so if you have transmission back and forth between animal to human or human to animal, it really limits our ability to treat infection.
Huh. The mindset about that is always like, "Oh, this is a scary thing." It just is, like, on its way, resistance, same thing with, anthelmintics
Yeah,
and how we treat parasites. It's like, they're getting resistant to what we have. Okay, and, like, I'm sure there are people, like, working on, like, next steps and
yeah.
other things that can be used, but, um, I what kind of you may not kn like, have an answer, but, like, what kind of time frame do you think is out there for any specific, I guess, population of agent that would be so resistant that we would just be like, all right, we have nothing, and hopefully you can fight, like, try and fight it off.
There are already some situations where that occurs.
Which one specifically?
Um, I'm thinking of drug-resistant Pseudomonas, sometimes Pseudomonas that's resistant to all the drugs that they have. So Pseudomonas are intrinsically resistant,
Hmm.
to a wide variety of drugs, but they're usually susceptible in veterinary medicine, usually susceptible to aminoglycosides, and if we're lucky, to fluoroquinolones, and there are some drugs that, have been developed that are used in humans, including carbapenems, that can be used for Pseudomonas. But there are sometimes Pseudomonas isolates out there that are resistant to all the things that you might pick. There's a really interesting case. Our phage center on campus, Doctors Rai Young and Jason Gill, um, and they have a great case story of a person that they were able to help with phage therapy because their Pseudomonas was so bad and so, resistant that there weren't other options. So there are definitely people out there working on possible solutions, and sometimes making really heroic efforts. That's a really heroic effort, and I would encourage anybody to go take a look at the Texas A&M Phage Center, website and to read that story. It's really gripping. Um, so there are folks working on it, but we're kind of already in the midst of these challenges happening, and it's just what do you do, and how do you manage those cases, and do we ever get back to a place where we have choices where we're less concerned? Bacteria and viruses and other things are able to evolve faster than we're able to evolve. So how are we going to manage those risks? Vaccines are one way, and that's pretty exciting. There's novel methods of vaccination that are exciting, and um, yeah, I'm not pessimistic. There is hope for the future, but it is definitely a challenge. And so using antibiotics responsibly is really important for veterinary medicine because lots of people live with their pets and live in close proximity with their pets, and their pets sleep with them and share a living space, and it's pretty easy to have transmission of some of these pathogens back and forth. And so they're not always pathogens. Sometimes they're just hanging out and being opportunists. But if you get an opportunistic infection with a CRE, it's not great.
On more of a positive note,
Yes.
um, I don't know why I started so with all the morbid stuff, but what's kind of your work split? I know that you've come into a couple of my classes, the classes that I've been a part of, and talked about what you do, and I promise I listened. But for now, like each professor that does like clinics and either research and teaching, like there's usually a percentage split among that. What's yours?
Sure. Um, The actual split of my time is a little different than what they call a faculty teaching equivalent, or a FTE, or time equivalent. So I spend 6 months, approximately 6 months a year, on clinical microbiology service, and so that means going into the lab every day and seeing what submissions do we have, what cultures are growing. Um, I tell the folks in the lab that my job is to interpret what they're telling the clinician to the clinician, and to interpret what the clinician. I'm the interpreter. I sit between the clinician and the technicians in the lab to try to explain to each side of that um, equation what the other's trying to tell them, and sometimes to consult on antimicrobial choices and therapy. So that can be either all day or it can be 30 minutes to an hour. It just depends on what happens that day. And you can't always predict. I can't predict any given day what it's going to be. So that's kind of the fun of it. You don't know what's going to be there waiting for you. It does make it a little challenging to plan your day. And then I teach, and then teaching senior vet students. That's 5 hours a week when I'm on clinics. And in the fall and spring semesters, when I'm teaching AOD, it's 3 hours lecture time and then 4 hours of lab. And then it takes probably 3 or 4 hours of prep for each hour of lecture, because each lecture you really need to go back and make sure that, see if there's any new developments, if there's any changes, or maybe try to figure out how you're going to whittle down those slides so they're not quite so overwhelming. Um, and so then my other time is spent doing research, and some of my research is clinical research coming out of the clinical microbiology lab, and then some of my research is actually through my research lab, where we tackle a problem, and that it's not just work that's being done in the clinical lab that we have added onto. It's actual what you would really think about a science lab doing. So the short answer is my favorite answer. It depends. um, but that's kind of the gist of my time.
What kind of research are you doing right now?
We just did a study with bovine macrophages looking at which chemicals and drugs that are normally given to cattle might influence how well those macrophages can kill salmonella. And it was an in vitro study using primary culture macrophages. So we went out to well, with the help of the folks at our veterinary medical park, got blood from some steers of the appropriate age that you would expect to be like feedlot, kind of the same age as feedlot steers, collected blood, isolated monocytes, matured them into what we believe are macrophages based on some flow cytometry and some other tests to see if they're expressing the things that macrophages would express, and then challenge those macrophages with salmonella. And before we did the salmonella challenges, we incubated the macrophages with various drugs and chemicals to see how well they killed salmonella. So it was a lot of fun, actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then the next step in that process, if you find drugs that would be part of routine practice that would have an impact on salmonella, would be then to go and do the epidemiologic study in the field, or maybe an actual challenge study in the field, or um, to see how animals respond.
And is that outside of your purview because you mostly do in lab work?
Um, it's realistically, yes, it probably is. I have certainly done field studies and worked outside in the field, but right now it'd be a little challenging.
Out of all three of your responsibilities, the research, the teaching, um, both in class and then the clinical teaching, which part's your favorite?
It's a tough call, and I think probably it's the combination of clinics and teaching, because the clinical service really informs the teaching. It's what the clinical service is. You're on the ground. You're helping clinicians make decisions about their patients by providing them with good information, what you hope is reliable, actionable information about what's happening in their patient, at least at the time that they collected the sample for culture. And then it informs what I think future veterinarians are going to need to know, because it's giving me that direct feedback every day. And then the opportunity to make a difference for a patient or a clinician is it's really satisfying. And so, um, definitely probably the combination of the two. I really enjoy research, and I particularly have enjoyed doing clinical research because it builds off of samples that would be collected anyway in the interest of a patient, and then trying to get as much information as we can to help future patients from those cultures or samples, or by summarizing the results of those cultures and samples.
With my experience now over the summer doing my own research project and learning about research in general, and reading papers, and then now I'm actually in the clinics. So I'll peek my head in on ECC rounds, and they're going over papers, and usually it's a paper in one topic in emergency and critical care, and then they'll move on to another paper in a completely different topic, but it's still within that mindset. And so they're kind of jumping around on different things, and it's usually, well, this paper, like they're doing it and something similar has already been done, but like all of these, like a list of things need to be researched in this area, and then they move on. And so it's like it's almost like there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be done, and I don't know, part of me has felt like, oh, it all needs to be done right now. That seems very overwhelming. And the the idea of like work life balance comes to mind, and I'm like, is that a good idea to think about right now? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Like, how do you go about thinking work life balance? You got a lot of stuff going on at work, like teaching's a lot. And um, it's funny whenever we see you walking from place to place, it's always like you're on a mission, you're going somewhere. Um, I guess like what's your mindset with work life balance nowadays?
I don't have work-life balance. I'm not a good example. And my own example is not what I would encourage our students to do. I'm pretty happy in my work. I think you do have to be intentional about taking breaks and taking time off. I am hoping to have a little bit of time off before classes start in the fall, and we'll see how that goes. Um, yeah. I think it's also important to do work you love and care about and is meaningful to you. I think that's important. I think to be a good clinician and veterinarian, especially if you are in practice seeing patients and working with clients who might be having one of the toughest days, around, that you also do have to take care of yourself. And the adage that we hear a lot about putting your own oxygen mask on first before you care for others. I think that is a real consideration. It is easy to get burned out, and it is easy to develop compassion fatigue if you don't take those breaks. So I think stopping and taking regular breaks along the way, and having a good group of people to discuss the challenges of um, medicine and practice with is really important. It's important to have a community of people who understand what the pressures are, to having good support in your family, you know, because it's not always possible. My husband jokes, "I never see you." Having an understanding of what you do and what the pressures are on you, and then as the veterinarian, having an understanding of what pressures and what you're asking of your family, is sometimes really important as well. So mine might not be the best example of how to do it, but it has been mostly really rewarding. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to learn from your generation of how to do a better job of balance.
I always think about work-life balance, and I go back and forth on it because I've heard multiple perspectives. One is like from my point of view, I just got done with my second year of vet school. I'm 24 years old. I have a lot of time to do the things like I have very little things that rely on me. Like I don't have a family. I don't have pets by choice. Like that was a intentional choice, is an intentional choice. But I don't have kids, and I have classmates who have kids, and they're like, I got to go home and like take care of my kids. I'm like, we have a test like tomorrow, and it's like that's a lot. Like I don't know if I could handle that, and but I always think I now is the most time I will ever have to do certain things, and so I'm like, should I say, all right, it's 5 o'clock. I should stop thinking about like things that I should be doing and work slash now like work means research right now. It's like, should I stop at 5 o'clock because then I need to, do outside life things. But I also heard that if you make your life work and work your life, as in not just everybody outside of the work environment just doesn't exist. It's more like, you do have a family, and that family goes to your workplace, and they interact in that world. Um, there was a professor, or I believe he was a researcher. He doesn't teach any of our classes that I know of. I think he works with other graduate students. I can't remember his name for the life of me. He goes up to Alaska and he does a lot of research up there. And it was really cool. He talked about how he brings his kids and his wife and everybody he works with does the same thing, and they'll all have like dinner together, and like they'll do it at the place of work, and like work is part of life, and then life is therefore part of work. And so there never needs to be balance because it's all wrapped up in one. And so I'm like, well, that seems like a a healthy idea instead of just like, all right, work ends now and now everything else exists. Because then while you're at work, that would inherently mean that nothing else exists, and that doesn't always work. So I'm saying work a lot, but it's not always realistic to say I'm at work right now, so the rest of the people in my life just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's challenging, and it depends on what you do. And of course, in microbiology, I'm going to be in a lab, and it's going to be have a certain biosafety level, and other people can't come in and be there. My pets certainly can't come and be there um, for their own safety. And so it really does just depend. I think the key is um, having good conversations with the people that are part of your life, a part of your that you want to be part of your life, about what the day to day looks like, and coming up with a solution that is mutually beneficial and works for you. Um, I think making sure that you get some time doing something else is important. I think taking care of your physical self is also really important. Exercise is good. I don't like running, but I do find that running is helpful for my mental outlook if I do it often enough. and so having something like that and making sure to nurture all aspects of who you are is really important.
Are having those kind of conversations difficult?
Sometimes they are, because sometimes it means you have to change something you're doing, right? You can't always get your own way. I mean, it depends, I guess, but um, if you're going to be a supportive spouse or parent as well, you have to give a little, right? And so, figuring out what those things are going to be and how you're going to work that is is important. And I think it's important to do that as a team or as a family.
Hmm. Yeah, I was trying to think of that in the future because right now those conversations just involve like my parents and like they'll call me and be like, "Hey, still doing okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, it's like, "You don't call very much." It's like, well, they know I don't call very much, and they're like, "We know you're busy." And then
Yeah,
that's about it.
yeah,
Um, and then I go back home when I can, and it works.
yeah,
But no, I always try and put those conversations like in context of the future and what that might
yeah,
look like. Um, I don't know. Part of me thinks that um, I don't know. I It feels like there's a lot of encouragement to be very high achieving in veterinary medicine because there's a lot of very smart and talented people that we are learning from. And it's almost like we're trying to work and live up to that, like, I want to say ideal. Maybe ideal is not the right word, but um, that vision. And then, that just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort.
yeah,
And which I don't think is inherently a bad thing because, looking back in undergrad, we all worked really hard to get into vet school and to separate ourselves from, I guess, the average because inherently the above average are going to get into vet school, which doesn't mean that if you don't get into vet school, you're not above average. Like there is a luck component to it, but um, like that almost doesn't go away once vet school starts. And I know Dr. Cornell, like day one, is like, the competition's over. Like, you made it. It's like, now you get to all like be together and like work together. And it feels like a kumbaya speech. And um, that
it's
almost competition mindset doesn't really click off.
yeah. It is hard to switch that off, and um, it's good to aspire to do great things, but it's just also important to um, uh, be kind to yourself along the way a little bit. And also, I think it's really important. You pointed out that you're 24 and you're at this stage of your life. I'm 56. I'm at a different stage at this point, and I don't really regret many of my choices. So I'm pretty happy about that. That's pretty good. Um, at the same time, I'm in a different chapter. So I think thinking about how your life is going to progress in chapters and what you want those chapters to be is not a bad idea. And thinking about when I get to retirement stage, what do I want to look back on and have accomplished, or um, what's important to me? What are the things that are important to me? What are the things I value? What will I be most proud of? And if you can answer those things for yourself, then you can build your career the way you want it to be. Because there's many different ways to be a veterinarian as there are veterinarians out there doing it. And you see one slice, right, with which is um, uh, what faculty at the vet school do, but that's not the whole of veterinary medicine. There's so many different ways to be a veterinarian in practice, and ways to be um, fulfilled in veterinary medicine. The hope is that you'll be fulfilled in veterinary medicine in whatever way that you choose to be. But some people certainly leave veterinary medicine after some period of time because there's something else that they want to do that's different or more important to them at that time, and that's okay too.
You mentioned chapters in your life. if you could, what were the different chapters and what was your mindset during those times?
Sure. So there was certainly the undergraduate, which you just described it, similar to my undergraduate experience. I probably wasn't as good a student as you were. Um,
I wouldn't think that. I was
it
a
was a different time. It was a different time. We got away with a little bit more. Um, and then vet school, and then graduate school and residency, and then early career as a postdoc because I really had intended to be more heavily in research, clinics and research, and not so much clinics and teaching. Um, and then early faculty, and then mid-career faculty, and now I probably qualify as later career faculty, even though I still feel like I have another 10 years in me. Um, and so, um, I'm on the farther side, I guess. I've been a faculty member for 17 years now, which is a little hard to believe. It goes quick. I guess that's my other thing. I would just tell you it goes faster than you think it will. So think about what you want your plan to be. And so each stage, thinking about what the next step was. As a veterinary student, I really thought I was going to go and be a small animal veterinarian back home in Austin. And it wasn't really until my senior year that I had done research before vet school. It wasn't until my senior year that I really said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And it was an experience I had on my externship, that caused me to really it was I did my externship on a zoonotic disease, actually, in a research, setting, and that really convinced me that, yes, that is what I wanted to do, and that caused me to pursue a residency, and I was just lucky enough that they accepted me for the residency, and, then I was fortunate enough to find my major professor, Dr. Craig Altier, who's just a fantastic salmonella researcher now at Cornell. Um, then in his lab, I would have stayed in his lab forever. I would still be a graduate student in his lab if that were a thing. Um, then thinking about, well, eventually you have to make a paycheck, and what kind of position, and there weren't faculty positions for microbiologists when about the time I was graduating from his lab, and so I was like, "Well, that means I'm gonna probably do a postdoc. Where can I do a postdoc?" And I was lucky enough to find somebody who, was a great mentor, Dr. Gary Adams, back here at Texas A&M, and, working with Andreas Boimler, who's now at the University of, California at Davis, who's an amazing salmonella researcher. So the combination of the 2 of them, working together was just a really, fertile opportunity. I really my only regret is that I didn't accomplish more under with working with such great people. But we accomplished quite a bit. And, then the next step is to become so the steps were kind of laid out for me. So when you ask about what are the chapters and what were the steps, it was kind of clear kind of how they were gonna go, since I was interested in research and wanted to stay in that arena. And then working through the ranks as a faculty member. So probably it just means I'm not as creative as I could have been. As
Did it feel that way in the moment? Like, okay, this can be my next step and I'm okay with that. There wasn't Was there a lot of anxiety of at any point like I don't know what I'm going to do next?
there was some anxiety as a vet student moving into my senior year about which way is this going to go? Do I really want to be a, a veterinarian in small animal practice, or do I want to do research? That was a challenging decision to make. Most of the anxiety at the other steps are, am I going to be good enough to get the next job or the next
Mhm.
position? Is that gonna work out? Or do I need to be thinking about my plan B? And I always make sure to have a plan B, and I encourage everyone to have a plan B that you like um, and could be happy doing, because you just never know what's going to happen. But for the most part, most of the time, my original plan worked out. Not always, but most of the time.
For me, I want to do residency after vet school,
Mhm.
which involves a rotating internship. If not one um, internship, then maybe a second specialty internship.
Mm.
Just with the way that residency programs and acceptance rate, like the direction that they're going for different specialties, and over these 4 years, like it's always in the back of my mind, like I need to make sure grades are where they need to be. I need to make sure like I'm doing all these things, and I do like am essentially making um I'm performing at a level that will make me um um just competitive, even though like I said earlier, the competition's over. And what was that like for you? And I guess what was your mindset? Were you nervous to like thinking, oh, am I good enough to do these things? And
Oh, sure. Somebody could have said no at any point along that way. And that's why I feel like I was just lucky because there were so many people in my class that were smarter than me for sure. That had better grades, that were better at specific things. Um, Probably my greatest strength is that I just don't quit. um, and 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 that people are inherently kind and generous and uh, willing to share their time and expertise. And if they know you're interested in the thing that they're interested in, they'll help you get to the next stage. So I worked for a pathologist all the way through vet school, and that was a really formative experience for me, Paul Freire, and working in shrimp and fish diseases. And so he actually he with Donald Lowe in Toronto made it possible for me to go and spend um, a month with Dr. Lowe at a human hospital looking at the Streptococcus NEA isolate from a human as compared to the fish isolates. And, um, you know, those kinds of moments, that's really just people's being generous with you. That didn't, they could have all just said, oh no, you need to go to a small animal practice. And whoever had to approve that, it could have said, oh no, you need to go to a small animal practice and do what you're supposed to do on an externship instead of this unusual thing that you're asking to do. So there's a fair bit of luck involved. That's why you should always have a plan B, because you never know. And sometimes it turns out that plan B is great. I really thought I was gonna be a small animal veterinarian, so I think plan B actually worked out better. If I had been a small animal veterinarian, I'm not sure that I would have been happy or that I wouldn't already be retired, so
yeah, the I've shadowed at I'm assuming you're talking about like general practice.
mhm, yeah,
Um, I've shadowed it with a a couple of general practice small animal veterinarians, and they're great, and they love what they do, and I'm like, I'm glad that you enjoy this. I don't know if I would enjoy this, and so in the back of my mind, I I'm like, I want to do these things, and if it doesn't work out, that is the plan B, and would
yeah,
I be okay doing that? I don't know.
yeah,
So, and I have a couple friends who are in the same spot. They're like, I really want to do X, Y, and Z. And beyond that, who knows?
yeah. Yeah, it was my plan A, and it's kind of surprising that that's not the way that that went, that I actually did the plan B, and it's been an amazing career, and I'm really, really grateful, and I'm really grateful for my cat Bootsy's general practitioner who looks out for her. It's really we're really lucky to have so many great veterinarians in doing primary care and loving it because, you have a real opportunity to make a difference in an animal's life and in people's lives, and, I think that's really the strength of veterinary medicine. You have so many different ways to be a veterinarian and, so many different ways for it to be the right thing for you. It's really great.
I have a handful of friends. I'm like, you are going to be a general practitioner, and you're going to be amazing at it. And I'm like, if I tried to, um, it's an unhealthy way to think about it. But if I were to try and compare myself to being a general practitioner compared to the way that you would be a general practitioner, like you would win every day because they naturally have all the empathy and the social skills and the natural just dynamics of being a people person. Like they have it, and they've had it for forever, and they really do care about stage and every stage of the process of being a general practitioner, from hey, I just got this puppy, to we're talking about end of life care,
Yeah.
and being part of that entire journey of what 10 to 15 years, sometimes with cats like up to 20 years, and they're like, yeah, that's what I want. Like that's their main drive is that,
Yeah.
and I'm I'm like, by I'm not saying I don't have any empathy for people,
I know you
um,
have empathy.
um, but like I know that in the back of my mind, I'm wired a different way, and that's why I think specialty would be better. And so I am glad that there are amazing general practitioners out there, and yeah. Yeah, I know a couple people who haven't gotten to vet school yet, and I'm like, "You just need to make it in the door, and then I promise you'll do great." Like, you just need to get in.
Yeah, it is so competitive. It is really challenging, and I would encourage them that if it's their dream and they are close, they should definitely keep trying.
What do you think about people who maybe are applying for the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time? I know some clinicians I know of. I don't wanna say I know them because I don't know them personally, but I know of some, um, boarded clinicians who didn't get into vet school, not even residency, but vet school until like their 4th or 5th time. And now they're, clinicians board certified in their specialty at a very top ranked veterinary college. And I can't help but think that, not getting in for the 3rd or 4th time, and they're like, okay, like time to do it for round 5,
Yeah.
like what that's like. What do you what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's such an individual decision and situation, and that's why I think you have to be kind to yourself. If you haven't got if you're applying and you haven't gotten in, it may have nothing to do with you. It may just be the pool of people that you're being compared to on that given year. And you have to look critically at yourself and say, what could I do better? And if there really is nothing, then it may have just been the luck of the draw, right? Any given race you go to, somebody's going to be first. It's not going to be me. I'm going to be lucky if to cross the finish line. I'm going to be happy about that. Um, and so, you really you have to be patient and kind with yourself. At the same time, you have to really step back and go, is this what I want to do? Is this what I'm meant to do? Are there other things that would be as fulfilling or more fulfilling for me? And I think if you've done that in veterinary medicine is the thing for you. Getting expert advice from the people that have reviewed your application can be helpful and informative.
I remember when I got in, it's very strange. Most of my major life updates, I'm usually at the gym, which is like it's just off timing. I'm not always at the gym. I just, for whatever reason, like I got the email for vet school. I know where I was at A&M's like recreation center, and I was like, it was weird. But immediately afterwards, me and like the dozen of other people applying at the time that I knew, like we were all texting each other, and some people were like nervous to text others because it's emotional. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into it, and you don't know whether or not somebody got in, and if the answer is no, it could be very upsetting to share that. So, but I wasn't like that. I texted everybody. I was like, I want to like
Yeah.
if somebody was like, "I don't wanna say," and it's like, "No, just tell me." Like, I'm not gonna be upset with you. And, there were some people, like, that didn't get in, and I'm like, "I thought you were gonna get in before I did." And that was when I realized, I was like, there really is a large, a component of luck, and you can try and play the game and really game the system as much as you can, point-wise. But at the end of the day, like, it's a yes or no and by a person, and that's not always perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think, I would certainly hope that no one uh, would come away feeling less than, or it's just on any given day. Sometimes it breaks that way, and you just have to uh, go forward. That's all we can. That's all any of us can do. I've certainly had disappointments in life, and Sometimes you just have to say, okay, this is where we're at. How do we go? How do we move forward from here? What direction are we going to go, and how are we going to do it?
Looking forward, what are kind of your goals
Yeah,
as a professor, clinician, researcher?
yeah. Hopefully, leave our clinical lab in good shape when I retire. Make sure there's a transition plan. Make sure that's not a sudden thing. But if it had to be a sudden thing, if there were a sudden health issue or something completely unforeseen at the moment, that everyone would be in good shape. There would be a plan, and that it would just carry on like I was never there. That would be great to leave things in such a way that the good parts just continue, and for somebody else to improve upon in the next thing. We're all only certainly in an academic institution. So Texas A&M is 150 years old this year. This year, it's
150?
150.
That's
It's our sesquicentennial in October.
Because the country is what, 250 now?
250
That's
now. Yeah.
how odd.
That it's
Good
that it's
timing.
that it's just like that, yeah. And so with that, there's a real recognition that we're just part of a continuum, you know? And so how do you make sure that the continuum, is not too disrupted, um, along the way? That you leave it in better shape than hopefully in some aspects, that you improved on the things you could improve upon, that you set the stage for whoever comes next to make whatever improvements they can make to make it even better than the way you left it, and that you do whatever good you can in the world while you can.
You talk about retirement, and that you might have 10 more good years in you. Well, you at least need 2 because now you're our faculty advisor. You were
That's
bestowed that, so
that's a real honor and a vote of confidence, and especially, given the faculty member who's stepping away for a new position, who's done a great job and is amazing. We're gonna
Mhm.
we're gonna miss him a lot, and so yeah, it means so much to me that your class would invite me to do that. That's really it's great. It's a great honor, and I'm really excited to get to do it.
I I remember, Dr. Major, um, for context, he was our faculty advisor, and he's stepping away for another position, and, he spoke at a club that I was part of in undergrad, and the club was is pre-vet society, and every week they have a meeting. Someone from somewhere in vet med comes and talks about whatever they do, and it could be literally anything. And I can't remember who was the president that year, but they found him, and he came in and he talked about laryngeal paralysis in horses. And at the time, I was like, I have no idea what that means. And but he was, like, showing pictures from, like, the surgeries he was doing, and he
Yeah,
was, really, like, charismatic and, like, interacting with all the students, and afterwards, everybody came up and was like, "Whoever this guy is, like, we need more of him. Like,
yeah,
he needs to come back and just talk," and he was talking about a lot of high level stuff, but everybody was very engaged, and so, I don't know, it was really cool, like, seeing that, and then coming into that school, and I'm like, "Oh, he's here." It's like, he's the
yeah,
guy, like, I
yeah.
remember him, so no, he will be missed. He's really cool.
He spoke at graduation this year, and it was so engaging. It was just the best. I choked up telling my dad about it afterwards. So yeah, we're gonna miss him a lot.
Do you know where he's going?
University of Georgia, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay. Um,
his alma mater is from vet school. So
mm,
yeah,
from what I've heard, the University of Georgia and A&M, like, they kind of, like, trade students for, like, residency programs. They're
yeah,
like, "Hey," like, there's just, like, good connections between
yeah,
both schools. I had a coworker who, graduated from vet school while I was still in undergrad, and now she's doing a cardiology residency over there, and she's the one who explained that, like, connection to me, and I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
so now it's, like, on the map in my head, but I know nothing about
yeah.
about that school?
Veterinary medicine is a small world, and so the academic veterinary medicine is an even smaller world, and so you get to know a lot of really great people, and so there are a lot of great folks at the University of Georgia. There are a lot of great folks here. There are a lot of great folks at each of our vet schools. I feel really fortunate so one of the ways you get to meet those folks is professional society meetings and giving back. In that way, and so for me, that's diagnostician groups or, microbiologist groups or the group that, sets the interpretive criteria for calling bacteria susceptible or resistant, and when you go to those meetings, you really get to know people from other places, and it creates this really neat web of experts you can call upon when you don't know the answer, but you know somebody who might know the answer, and it's great, but yeah, UGA is a great school.
When you're talking about groups, are these boarded committees that are,
Yeah.
I don't know, running, creating guidelines for different services and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. Professional groups. So for me, it would be American Association of Veterinary Laboratory Diagnosticians or the American College of Veterinary Microbiologists or the Clinical and Laboratory Standards Institute Veterinary Antimicrobial Susceptibility Testing Subcommittee. And then for others, it might be, AABP or AAEP, the American Association of Bovine Practitioners, or American Association of Equine Practitioners, or American Association of Feline Practitioners,
Those
or
are all big ones.
those are all big ones,
Mhm,
American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine, groups like that.
mhm.
And so when you get to know, folks in your professional society or at your state level veterinary medical association, the Texas Veterinary Medical Association is a big group, but there are a lot of small subgroups within it. So whatever your interest in practice is, there's an opportunity to give back and contribute to the knowledge base and the connections. And so making those connections is actually really rewarding. You get to know people really well over the course of a few years, and sometimes you have the opportunity to make a difference by creating tools for other people to use.
What about a connection to the human medicine world? Do you
Yeah.
see any of that?
Yeah, so there's certainly opportunities to do that, and certainly in zoonotic diseases. Um, Here in the state, like next week, the Diseases in Nature conference is being held right here in College Station, Texas, and that is um, really largely organized by the Texas Department of State Health Services, the folks in the zoonosis control units, and two people in particular. And I haven't talked to them, and so I'm uncomfortable just saying, but
Mm.
it's a really great conference, and it brings together folks in the medical field and the veterinary field, and really all aspects: animal control officers, veterinarians, physicians, nurses, infection control, infection preventionists, um, anybody with parasitologists. I can't leave out parasitology. Anybody that's got an interest in diseases that are transmitted between animals and humans comes together in that meeting, and so there's a real opportunity for conversation and exchange of what we know about each of those areas, what we each bring as our expertise to that group.
Are you going to that conference?
I am. I'm really excited to get to hear some of the talks where there's going to be New World screwworm and leishmaniasis and trypanosoma and extended spectrum beta lactamase producing E. coli's, and so it's going to be great.
One of the papers that, because I'm doing the VMSRTP, so every so often we're doing journal clubs, and the paper that my group is presenting on, or faculty mentor for that presentation is Dr. Hamer, and so we're doing it on Trypanosoma cruzi, and I'm trying to read the paper, and I'm like, this is dense. There's a lot.
There's a
There's a
lot
lot
of
going on
knowledge,
with
yeah.
that, and just trying to explain like how they're trying to make a vaccine and different ways in which they're trying to do it and why it's very difficult to do. And I'm like, okay. Like, it's a lot easier when it's like, "This is what we're doing, and this is why it works." Like, that's the answer. But right now for that, it's we're trying to figure it out, and here's the different roadmaps that we're moving down and why, like, different walls we're running into and what needs to be done. So, Um, Side tangent. Um,
She's presenting at that conference, and so
oh, she is.
yes, I'm really hoping I get to hear her talk. So,
Hmm. Is this open access?
um, there is a student registration, and it's substantially reduced, and so there if you have the time, it's Wednesday and Thursday next week, and there are opportunities. If you want to remind me, I'll send you an email.
I can look into that. Um, I've uh, I have other things during the day,
Sure.
so it depends on what time, but that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, in your experience, I don't know how much you have communicated with people in human medicine, whether it's people working with agents themselves, like MDs and PhDs, or just patients. Uh, does it seem like they are susceptible to, not susceptible, responsive to your input as a veterinarian?
Yeah, probably it just depends, but everyone I've ever interacted with has been great. And so going back to that externship a long time ago when I was a senior vet student, that was at a human hospital working with a physician, Dr. Donald Lowe. And part of the reason why I'm here today as a faculty member is because he was doing One Health before it was called One Health. He was a physician who brought together veterinarians, fisheries biologists, nurses, um, their person in the community that interacted with patients. He brought them all together around this problem of this transmission of this streptococcus from fish to humans, and it was just a really great experience. It was certainly transformative for me. And then when I've worked with physicians, in more recent years, it's been great too. We have a local infectious disease physician who is really fantastic and very receptive to having the conversation about certainly methicillin-resistant staphylococci and, how those can be exchanged between humans and animals. So I think it's just a matter of finding the right people, on both sides of that equation to have good conversations about how this works and what we can do to reduce the burden of disease for both. I was gonna say animals and their humans, but he would probably say humans and their pets. Yeah.
Yeah, I catch myself many times on these podcast recordings saying the human world, which for us makes a lot of sense. For everybody listening, they were like, "You mean the
The
world?"
world. Yeah.
It's like, "What are you talking about?" Um, what about state veterinarians? You mentioned it a number of times in class for very for reportable diseases. And by golly, if I see ulcerative lesions on the mouth of a bovid, I will be calling the state veterinarian. But in your position, how often do you interact with them?
So fortunately, it's not very often that I have to have a disease where I need to call. But we used to do equine infectious anemia testing in our laboratory, and we did have a positive, and I immediately am calling the state veterinarian and having the conversation, and they were wonderful. Our local area Texas Animal Health Commission veterinarian was just fantastic at walking me through what we needed to do and how we needed to do it, and it was a positive experience. It was even better when the horse was truly negative and it was just a false positive from the ELISA test that was, performed. But a really fantastic support, and so I find that folks at regulatory agencies, whether it's Texas Animal Health Commission or the State Department of Health Services or FDA or CDC, that, people are really there people that are in those positions are there to help others, and when you call them asking for their help, they will find a way to help you, and it's incredibly rewarding. I have a longstanding grant from FDA as part of their veterinary laboratory investigation response network. They've been amazing. They have what is probably a relatively small budget when you think about the federal government and FDA, and they managed to do so many things. I have said in many meetings, this is the best use of tax dollars that I can think of because it really goes right back to the communities. Where those laboratories are. And so, my experience certainly with our state veterinarians has been excellent.
Do they ever reach out to you?
I'm sure they reach out to the folks at the Texas Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Laboratory,
Hmm.
but our laboratory serves our hospital, and so we're a much smaller laboratory, so it's usually the other way, us calling them, not the other way around. But probably when you look at, the Texas Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Laboratory, or TVMDL, they get thousands of samples a day, and I'm sure if there's a question, that's who the, Texas Animal Health Commission would be calling.
Outside of work, what do you like to do?
That's a great question. I spend time with my husband and my cats, and historically my dogs. Probably beyond that, it's the pretty mundane gardening and quilting and things like that. Going with my husband to run. I don't like running, so I'm not going to pretend that I enjoy that. I don't enjoy that, but I will do it. It is good for me, and I recognize that. So probably, yeah, probably that's it. Reading, reading non-science. I read a lot of science every day, so that's good too, but sometimes reading biographies is a lot of fun, or murder mysteries if I really want something completely different.
Is that your book of choice? The murder mysteries?
Yeah, probably so, because it's the mysteries, right? It's why I'm a microbiologist. It's the whole detective thing. I think that appeals to me. Finding the solution to the question is probably my first choice.
There are a number of professors now that when they say I like reading, that's their genre of choice. It was Dr. Tace and Dr. Hoffman who were like, "Yep, mysteries, like
Yep.
that's the thing." Um, you said you garden. I've been trying to like I have two plants.
Mhm.
I was thinking about getting more, and then I was like, I don't have very many windows. I could put them outside, but then I'm gonna forget about them, and I don't know. But what do you like to garden?
Yeah, so I really like vegetable gardening outside. So, you have to have space for that. Our soil is not necessarily great for it around here, so it means a lot of raised bed stuff or amending the soil. I did my residency at North Carolina State, and, the weather there was great, and the soil in our yard was great, and if you had a tomato this year, then next year you'd have a tomato plant from which that would just come up voluntarily from the seeds from last year's
Oh wow.
tomato. Yeah, so I have missed that, I'll be honest, but I really enjoy growing vegetables and then being able to eat whatever we've grown if the squirrels don't get it, or the rabbits. We have rabbits and squirrels in our yard, and they both, um tend to go for that. So a lot of times it winds up just being herbs because they don't really care for chives and and garlic too much.
Yeah, I would like to have a garden at some point. Um, right now, having an apartment doesn't really uh, match that dream. But my mom, whenever I go back home, I always get reminded why I'm like, oh, I want some garden or something because she has 100 different plants, some inside, some outside, and just tomatoes and lemon trees and all these different things, and they're all scattered everywhere. Um, but no, the soil here is not conducive to grow very much, and you can't even call it soil; it's just clay. Um,
You have to
it's tough.
definitely work it pretty heavily.
North Carolina, your residency. Um, my faculty mentor did her internship at North Carolina, and it's been on my radar for residency and internships. And I don't know too terribly much about it. The VMSRTP um, research symposium, where we're going to travel to present, is going to be in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be super exciting. And everyone always says it's gorgeous up there. What was that like?
Yeah, it is pretty. It's greener and, a longer, folks from elsewhere would say there aren't seasons, but we did get a record snowfalls 2 years in a row. Um it's a really interesting place scientifically because you're right there in the Research Triangle Park area, and so you have Duke University in Durham, you have, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and you have, NC State there in Raleigh, and so between those 3 cities, you have a lot of science happening, and then, of course, you have the Research Triangle Park that has both, government laboratories and private commercial laboratories, and so there are a lot of scientists there, and there's a lot of biology that happens there, and so, um, it was a really, um, scientifically rich environment to do the PhD, and so it was a really good experience for me. We had a very strong immunology program at the time that I was there, and so I spent a lot of time in Immunology Journal Club, and there were people would come from all over the triangle to participate in that, and it was pretty neat. And then we had a really great bacterial pathogenesis group, and we had a lot of guest lectures from people from all up and down the Atlantic coast, and so lots of lots of schools and lots of places. So it was really great. I enjoyed it a lot. I wasn't sure what it would be like. My real goals in a residency was that it not to be too cold because I was newly married and my husband was like, "I don't wanna live in the snow." He had grown up in, Germany, as a kid, and so, he's like, "I just don't want the cold." I was like, "Okay." So, North Carolina was pretty good even though we had snowfall. It was most of the year, it was pretty temperate and pretty pleasant for him, from that standpoint, and it was really good for me professionally. It was a good training environment.
Would you recommend it for someone interested in doing post vet school
Yeah.
training?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the challenge when you're doing, post-vet school training are who are the people that are gonna be your influences, and, most of our veterinary colleges have some really great people, to train with, so it's not a question of one size fits all. I just got really lucky that the time was right and the place was good and the people were fantastic, and I'm really grateful that I got to have that experience.
Yeah, I mean, with my time working at the hospital, because I've been working in radiology, the radiology department there since I was a junior in undergrad. And so I've seen a number of fourth year classes come through, and I've seen people go through vet school and then do their internship, or go through vet school, go somewhere else for their internship, and come back for their residency. And now I'm like, I get it. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and like in each department there are like really great clinicians, and I'm like, you know, all of you would be great mentors. It's just like, which subject do you want to pursue is really
Yeah.
the question. Um, and so, like, going back to the idea of Plan B, it's like, I've been in College Station for going on 7 years now. I'm more of a city kid
Mhm.
than the rural lifestyle, so this is very out in the middle of nowhere for me. And I'm like, I think I need just more things. uh, it's funny to think that we technically there's a mall in College Station, but there isn't. Like it's a building. I don't remember the last time I went in there or anybody was like, I'm going to the mall and doing stuff. And so like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to go somewhere else. But like A&M will still always be there. And um like it's weird to think of it as a plan B because it's for a lot of people their plan A, and they're like, I really want to go there for
Yeah.
residency. So
When you're a resident, you really don't have a lot of time to do other things. Honestly, you're in the hospital most of your day, and so it matters less what the other things are. In North Carolina, everybody said, "Oh, you're so close to the mountains and the coast," and we got to the coast the day before my husband left North Carolina, and that was the only time we got to the coast, and the only time we went through the mountains while we were there was coming or going to college, coming or going to Texas. So, it just depends, but, um, yeah, I think you won't go wrong wherever you find a training program. It's really, um and it's good to go somewhere else because there are different perspectives and thought, and when you do all your you don't wanna do all your training in one place because then you get really, I say that as somebody who's been here a long time and has done at least a couple of degrees here. Um it's still good to go somewhere else and get different perspectives. There's lots of different ways to do things, and it was great because sometimes there were things that I saw at NC State. And I was like, "Oh, I'm really glad I went to that school at Texas A&M." And then there were other things I was like, "Oh, I'm really glad I'm here doing this and these things." So each place has its strengths, and you just get to benefit from those.
You commented on the density of science in North Carolina. Other than the fact that there are just a lot of people doing work um, in a number of different uh, aspects of medicine, um, what do you think is the benefit of that kind of environment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just named the main one is that you've got lots of great people thinking about the things you care about, and so there are a lot of people to interact with, and so you get to bounce ideas off of um, a bunch of really smart people, and sometimes they have better ideas, and um, you get to benefit from all the various lectures that are available and seminar series, which is really pretty exciting. So it's just that fertile ground makes it really good, and, that particular part of North Carolina is really dense in science. Other parts of North Carolina are dense in other things with there's a lot there, uh, beyond beyond the vet school and beyond, um, biology, but the same is true for Texas, just, we get in our own little when you live in a place, you get in your own little, um focused niche and you don't always get to experience the other things. But when you go to a new place, at least when you start out, just like coming here, probably initially, it's like, oh, these are the things I can learn about from being in this spot.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Here, you travel 30 minutes outside of College Station or Bryan College Station. It's just fields and
Yeah.
farms and stuff. And so, yeah, the idea of staying in one spot and things just accumulating,
Hmm.
um, it's very real. I feel like here because it doesn't take too far to like we are far away from a lot of things, um, just by the nature of Texas.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny, all the new people to Texas during the first year of vet school, they were like, "Oh, it is that big." And there is a lot of just the middle of nowhere. And then you talk to people from very small towns and they're like, "Yeah, we had a gas station and a light, like a stoplight that worked maybe." Um, and so no, like one of my main drivers to um go somewhere else for the internship and residency after vet school is the fact that I've been here so long. So long is relative. I know someone who did the actually I spoke to somebody who did Colton Pittman. He graduated this past year. He did his undergrad, his master's, and did vet school here. And he was like, "Yeah, after a decade." And I was like, "A decade? Huh? Could I be here another 4 years?" I'm like, do I want to? I don't know. I don't know.
It's good. It's good. It's certainly good in your early and mid 20s to experience lots of different parts of the world. I didn't predict that I would spend my career here. That wasn't what I thought when I left for residency. It's certainly I told my husband we would do our best to get back here, because this was the first place that was really home for him beyond going back and forth from El Paso to Germany as a kid. And so it worked out that way. So I'm pleased that I made good on that, for him, but I would have expected, uh, I wasn't sure that was gonna happen. So, it's worked out okay. And even though it feels like it's small now, you should have seen it in 1987. It's definitely grown. It is a much bigger place,
Does it feel
than it
different?
was. Yeah, there are parts of it that feel different, but it's still a friendly town, and people are generally welcome. And international students report that, I mean, maybe they're being nice, so that's a possibility, but they report that they have a good experience here, that they feel welcome, and um, while they're here, that's important. That's important to me. I think it's important, in Texas, that we welcome people, and we're just part of their journey. And so yeah,
Yeah.
university towns are just part of the journey for most people, and so you want it to be a positive experience for the majority. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, for sure.
Does it feel weird with the because I'm sure the student population of the town has grown like just tremendously over the years, and I should really look this up to make sure I'm telling the truth, but I think A&M, like the university in total, has now capped their student population because it was growing so much, and then they just couldn't accommodate that many students, whether parking or classes or whatever. And so I want to say they capped it at like 85,000.
That sounds right.
Um,
It was about 40,000 when I was an undergraduate here, and it was one of the two biggest schools in the state at that time.
what's what's the biggest difference from back then to now?
Mm, Traffic. There's more traffic. There's just more people. There aren't as many pastures in town. There are places that are now stores that used to be fields of Charolais cattle, and some of us miss that a little bit. Um, but like you said, you don't have to go very far to be out of town and away from the things that have changed. More
Yeah,
things are probably the same than have changed, really.
I mean downtown Bryan is still, I feel like,
That's changed for the better.
yeah.
It's come back. When I was a student, it was not as nice as it is
Oh,
now. It
really?
it had it had been nice, and then it had kind of um uh it was starting its comeback when I started here as an undergrad.
It has the feel of an old town, an old timely town, like in town vibe. My my grandma lives up in Kansas, a very small town in Kansas where like you could see fields of corn from your backyard kind of thing, and not a lot of people. And they have a town very similar. It's like brick buildings that have been there for a very long time,
Yeah.
and it just has different vibe. Um, and downtown Bryan like has that same kind of feel, in a way, especially at night. Like they have lights, and they always do the what's it called, First Friday.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I should go to that more. I've been to it once. It's interesting. Lots of live music and stuff. Um, which what you said, you're from Austin,
Mhm.
so I'm sure you're used to that.
Mhm.
Um, do you where did you live in downtown Austin, or did you grow up there?
No, I lived in what was then South Austin, which is now probably Central Austin, near Barton Springs. Actually, right across from where the Broken Spoke is on Lamar is the neighborhood where I grew up. My dad said you used to be able to hear it from when you'd have the windows open, you could hear the music from the Broken Spoke.
Was it very suburban?
Yeah, yeah, but even there, there were fields of sheep in with less than a mile away from our house. So
Hmm.
that's not the case anymore. That's a shopping center now. So yeah.
So you grew up with at least the idea of livestock, and like did you have experience with livestock at all?
No, I was a small animal person. I had all my experience with small animal, except for rabbits. I had rabbits as a kid, and so depends on who you ask. But for some people, rabbits are exotics. For other people, they're food animals. So from my perspective, they're pets. But I totally get that they are food animals, and so as well. So all my experience, small animal until vet school. Yeah.
Was that a shock?
I was concerned. And, but it worked out okay, and my colleagues that had more large animal experience were really great about helping us get comfortable when we had to actually work animals. We didn't have what you guys have in your first year in terms of getting comfortable with all those species and putting halters on animals and things like that. We didn't really do a lot of that till our 3rd year and 4th year, and so that took some adjustment, but we had really great faculty that taught us how to do stuff and how to be safe, and so it wasn't terrible, but it definitely I was nervous.
That was that kind of exposure I had in undergrad because I was an animal science major,
Oh, sure.
and it was COVID the first year.
Oh, wow.
So everything was online except for one class. It was the introduction to animal science. They had a lab. The lecture was online, which was easy because it was just a lecture. But the lab had some hands-on activities that you needed to do, and every week, like there would be a different species. First, I remember first week was sheep, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna halter them," and then uh, they're like, "We're gonna flip the sheep," and I was like, "What does that mean? Like, why?
How do
Like,
we
what do you
do that?
mean?"
Why are we gonna do this? Yes.
It's like flip them, and they did it like uh for the audience. They essentially just get them to sit on their butt,
Yeah.
and like lean their back up against you. So and um like he just did it in front of me, and I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
why? Like what are we doing? And it kind of it seemed so silly at the time. And then just slowly over that year, I was like, okay, cool. Can I now consider myself a large animal person? And all my friends were like, absolutely not. Because they grew up on like running cattle shoots and stuff like that, which I still needed to expose myself to. But um no, it was a running joke that I was a BIMS major at heart, and which is still true, and it's fine. Like I'll own that. But no, nowadays I can at least use that experience in some capacity when thinking of large animal medicine things. Especially when it comes to cattle. The we did a I was a part of a beef production class, and they went into a lot of the nitty gritty of uh, creating a beef production system. And part of the lab for that class was like, all right, design your own program. And you're like, oh, there's a lot of, it's almost like business at that
Yeah.
point. Um, and you got to factor all these things in. And I'm like, now I get it. Now I get why, like, they were preaching a number of things like throughout the 4 years. And I was like, okay, cool. I get it. Like rotational grazing and, um, hybrid vigor when it comes to breeding is like, cool, I get it. And then we actually needed to put it into practice, and I was like, oh, it is that important. So I don't know. That was a long tangent of
No, I think it's important, like, thinking about parasite control and rotational grazing, not only and nutritional value because of your but because of your crops, you don't wanna pull too much, out of the soil, and thinking about how all the factors that go into that. It's not trivial to raise animals for any purpose, and, certainly not when you're thinking about food production and protein production for a population. It's really challenging. You're gonna explain for folks why you make the sheep sit?
um I remember so for laparoscopic insemination, I know that they're in that position. It can also be put in kind of like a I don't remember. There's some kind of thing that holds them in that position, um, for the actual procedure. Beyond that, I I think they're just easier to manage for shearing. I've seen some people
Yeah.
shear in that position, but I've also seen them where they get them to stand on a stand,
Mhm.
which isn't very specific, but and then they put their head in this halter that keeps them still, and then they just shear them that way. Um, but beyond that, I'm not too sure.
Oh, I was gonna say sheep shearing,
Yeah.
just to make the sheep more comfortable and to harvest the wool. Yeah.
It is kinda funny, there's someone online, I couldn't remember the name, and she or sheep and just, like and it takes her, like, a minute and a half to
Yeah.
get one of them done, and they just sit back and they relax the
Mhm.
entire time, they're like, "Oh, we're done? Cool," and they walk off,
Yeah.
and they're fine, so it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Making it not stressful for the animal is really important.
Yeah, and that was another thing that they preached, in my animal science curriculum is the mitigation of stress, 'cause it was all in the mindset of producing a product.
Yeah, I think, thinking about, animal production and thinking about how you manage herds, it becomes really important when you think about populations and everything from animal science is really useful in thinking about how you're going to manage, because I'm an infectious disease person, of course I'm going to think this way, but um, how you're going to manage infectious disease in any population, whether it's cats in a cattery or in a shelter situation, or dogs in that kind of situation, to production animals, to thinking about, how diseases transmit through populations, that any population, even thinking about COVID in humans, right? It's some of the same principles of what makes animals more susceptible. Certainly, stress is a factor. Nutritional quality is a factor. Um, how densely populated is an area, that that drives a lot. That drives a lot of uh, those kinds of considerations. How on the pathogen side, how many pathogens do we have? What's the density on the pathogen side? So all of those things are really valuable, and certainly as a veterinarian, thinking about companion animal and production animals is really important. And they inform each other. Even if you're working in dogs, understanding how populations work is really valuable.
In the animal science like mindset in producing something, stress always decreases the quality, the speed of production, like everything about it. Stress is like the enemy. And so we were always like, how can we make the animals as comfortable as possible so that they can do the job of getting bigger, stronger, and more and staying healthy.
Yeah,
And so they like every class, no matter if it was nutrition, um we always had like, were you an back
I was a
for undergrad?
biomedical science
Okay.
major. Yeah,
um like all the classes in animal science, like easiest names, we had meats, breeds, nutrition, like it was we had repro, they just short and sweet. But in each class, it was like stress, like how can we mitigate that as much as possible, which I always thought was interesting. And it was cool because like the professors were die hard about it. They're like,
yeah,
this is the main enemy
yeah.
kind of thing. So, um, kind of a change of pace. What do you think as a professor makes the best student?
I think the key is care about your learning. A student that cares about learning something is going to do what they need to do. They're going to be engaged. They're going to dive into the subject. Um, I think that's probably the most important quality a student can bring, is you don't have to be excited about a subject. You just have to care that you learn it, because many of the things I teach are not exciting until the
What are you
moment
talking
until,
about?
until the
Of course
moment
it's
that they
exciting.
until the moment that they are. Well, there are some things that I teach that are kind of like when you do your taxes, right? Some of the things about antimicrobials, and they're really important. They're really important, but they're maybe not the most. It's not life or death until it is. Um, so caring about learning the things you need to learn is probably the most important quality.
Mm. One of the mindsets I try to kind of be most comfortable with and remind myself the most often, especially this past year, was like, I do need to care about what I'm trying to study farther than just trying to make a grade, because it does come back. And that wasn't really evident until second year. And I was like, oh, like it was easy to go through 1 year and know it for that 1 year. But for all of undergrad, like, in my head, I was like, a lot of this I'm not gonna be using." And so once the grade's made, like, cool, then I get to move on.
Yeah.
But now it's like, no, I do, like, I have to care about it all of it. And, um, admittedly, it's like, it's a lot to care about, and so you
There's
kinda
some
get
there's some things you have to care more about, at any given time. And sometimes it's just knowing where you can go back and refresh your memory when you need to, right? It's building a foundation and then layering or stacking on the next level, and that's sort of the philosophy in Agents of Disease. We start off with a baseline and then we try to layer things on because the way we learn is most of us don't have eidetic memories, right? We don't remember everything we've ever heard and can place it immediately. If we did, that would be phenomenal. I could only wish. But for most of us, we have to repeat things. We have to go back and that repetition is part of how we learn. And so it's just normal, right? That you're going to have to go back and each time. But each time you'll remember a little bit more and it becomes easier and easier and faster to pull those memories up when you need to.
Hmm. I've been going through a lot of the old notes the past few weeks. One of the clinicians I've been shadowing, he brought up just all he mentioned like canine respiratory diseases and feline respiratory diseases, and he was like, "Yeah, you know all of them." And he moved on. I was like, "I should know all of them. Let me go back and look at them. What are they again?" And so I was like, "Okay." And then I wrote them down real quick, and I was like, "Okay, there's the list again.
Yeah.
Let me try and make this, cement this a little better to round things off." You got any final notes for anybody who might be listening? Either a student in undergrad, vet school, maybe high school, or somebody who owns a pet, a veterinarian who's already graduated, just anybody.
That's a big, broad group, and so coming up with a single piece of information or advice is probably too hard. So I'm just gonna say, be kind to yourself, especially if you've done your best for either getting into vet school or for your pet. If it's your pet and there's a limit to what you can do, that is the way it sometimes is. Um, yeah, do all we can do is the best we can, and after that, we really do have to be generous with ourselves, be kind, and be kind to each other.
Cool. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for the invitation.
This was fun.
It was great to get to visit with you. Thanks for having me.